So Stress Code was fundamentally about self-actualization. It's about bringing out our potential during difficult times and during challenging periods. It was about mindset and behavior and self-awareness and health practices. Stressproof, on the other hand, is very much about leadership in crisis, how to protect and buffer the people that fall within your sphere of influence, how to bring out their potential during difficult times. And I think it is so relevant for where we're holding at the moment. There were so many great articles and papers that I read, and many of them were quite surprising in many respects. But the one that really stood out for me was an article by Macmillan from Bain & Company. And it really alluded to the power of inspiration in transforming realities within a business, realities within a family unit, realities within a team. If we're able to inspire people around us, we really bring out their best potential and greatest performance. And that is something that really stuck with me. Presenteeism can be defined as coming to work disengaged, disinterested, disenthused, feeling unwell, dissatisfied. And it fundamentally comes about through emotional or physical disturbances or compromise. Depression is the principal driver of presenteeism, anxiety as well. Physical pain and allergies, those are the big contributing factors to presenteeism. Presenteeism can be extremely costly on a business in terms of lowered productivity and lowered potential, lowered creativity and innovation and everything that we hold so dear and so important. In fact, a couple of years ago, there was a really big study. It looked at 8 diverse regions of the world, looking at the impact of presenteeism from an economic standpoint. And what they found was within South Africa, presenteeism was costing the country 229 billion rand every single year. That is the impact and influence of presenteeism. I think we all know great managers, individuals who can conform and fit into any culture, are focused on the detail, refining existing systems, building existing systems, are risk averse, do not like to fail. But they're different to leaders. Leaders at this time are change agents, looking to be non-conformist, create a new brand, a new system, looking towards the future, sometimes at the expense of the present. I would say that some of the best examples of great leaders in our time include Steve Jobs and his vision for Apple, and locally, Rassie Erasmus, his vision for the Springbok rugby team, trying new approaches and new systems and new models. And ultimately, it materialized in incredible success and it inspired a nation. But for leaders to be successful, they need great managers. And for managers to be successful, they need great leaders. There's this synergy and the symbiosis that exists. The question is, where do we fit in as individuals? I think such an important question right now, so relevant. There's 2 things one has to be on the lookout for. The first is burnout and the second is presenteeism. Now, burnout is often characterized by physical exhaustion and feelings of depletion, which is 100% correct. But the interesting thing about burnout is that it doesn't necessarily begin in that physical set. Often burnout begins with emotional volatility, emotional instability, emotional challenges. It progresses then to depersonalization and detachment, being disconnected from your environment. This then amplifies and grows and expands into a feeling of low self-worth and poor esteem. And ultimately, job performance will decline. But all of this is superimposed on negativity and pessimism. So leaders and managers and those who have teams that they're responsible for should be on the lookout for these subtle shifts and subtle changes in their people, in their teams. At the same time, presenteeism is very real. Presenteeism fundamentally is defined as coming to work disengaged, disinterested, disenthused, not well. It's often brought about by depression, which is triggered by stress. Now, many of the symptoms of presenteeism parallel that of burnout, but some of the defining ones include low motivation, poor attention, poor focus, emotional volatility, aggression, outbursts, crying. And if you're seeing more than 2 of those symptoms within any of your people, your teams, your organization, it's time to take action. And that's what the book is about. It's about recognizing these signs and these symptoms and taking the necessary steps to make lasting and appreciable change. I think it's such a great question. If we are so responsible for other people, their well-being, their destinies, but we're not coping, what do we do? And one has to understand that our potential lies within 2 areas: health and strong human and social connections. And the more we invest in our health and well-being, the more resilient we'll be and the more effective we'll be as a leader, as a manager, as someone who's responsible for others. But at the same time, we can't do it without strong social connections. And all the resilience studies that have been published in the last few years, looking at a successful adaptation to difficult circumstances, all emphasize these points: physical health, physical fitness, combined with strong social connections. So the message here is self-care, and the message here is reach out and connect to the people that are closest to you, the people that offer you both instrumental support and emotional support. What toxic positivity is fundamentally a denial or diminishment of the challenges that we're confronted with, whether emotional or physical. All leaders have to be optimistic. But optimism doesn't necessarily mean that we're denying the circumstances that we're confronted with in any way, shape, or form. In fact, to the contrary, optimism is basically saying that I acknowledge, I understand, but I do not accept the circumstance that we're confronted with. There is hope for change, a better reality. And every leader has to have this inherent trait. The greats like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., they knew the circumstances they were confronted with. They didn't deny them. They didn't accept them either. They were always optimistic in their journey for change, for a different reality. We often confuse leadership with title. But leadership transcends title. Leadership is about actions and responsibility for others. The message in the book is very much about leading by example. It's about empathy and care and compassion. It's about inspiring others. It's about giving people a voice, making people feel valued. That is great leadership. Now, we have so many examples in our country, Nelson Mandela, Siya Kolisi, that embody this message, these principles, leading by example, inspiring a nation, the empathy, giving people a voice, standing up when others don't. Fundamentally, that's leadership. But we also have international examples, Martin Luther King Jr., Winston Churchill, Oprah Winfrey, all who had different strengths and different styles of leadership, different abilities. Winston Churchill could inspire. Oprah Winfrey, her empathy and compassion. Martin Luther King, his vision and his ability to stand for what he believed was right, his morality. And I think we can learn from all these incredible teachers and figures. I think burnout's becoming a growing concern everywhere in the world. In fact, at the beginning of last year, burnout was classified as an official disease by the World Health Organization, and up until that point, it was very much anecdotal. Now, typically, burnout is characterized by physical exhaustion, feelings of low energy and total depletion, and we can all identify with that. But what we don't realize is that burnout is also associated with mental and emotional instability and a decline in our emotional well-being. It's also linked to greater feelings of negativity and pessimism at a time where we have to be optimistic. It's also linked to depersonalization and detachment. We start becoming disconnected from everything. We just don't feel like we're here. But it also affects our confidence, affects our self-worth, self-esteem in a profound way. And this translates into reduced effectiveness in our work and in our life in general. Now, typically, burnout is driven by high demands, overcommitment, long working hours, and we can all identify with that. The demands have got greater. We're working longer hours because of the remote working conditions and situations. We are overcommitting because of the volatility in the labor market, jobs market, and general economy. Now, the book really touches on this. It answers these questions. How do we confront? How do we deal with burnout successfully? Is it all about self-care, or is there more to the story? And that's what I unpack in Stressproof. So the question is, I think we're all asking that question, is why is this time more stressful than previous times in human history, or certainly recent human history? And the answer lies with the fact that the fourth industrial revolution has brought with it exponential change, rapid change. Change that makes us feel out of control, creates uncertainty, fears. In all previous industrial revolutions, we had time to adapt. New professions arose. We could recalibrate. This one's different. It's too quick, it's too fast. It's creating too much uncertainty and insecurity. And then it's superimposed with COVID-19, which is amplifying many of the fundamental issues. And if you go back to all your experiences, all your challenges in your life, where you were most stressed, it's where you felt out of control. And this lack of control defines the time. There's been about 70 years of research into stress and how it affects health and what causes stress. And time again, all the big studies are showing that it's a lack of control that principally drives stress in human beings. So the question is, what do we do about it? How do we offset this, something that is not likely to change in the near future? If you're in a leadership position, whether it's family, teams, an entire organization, you've been given a gift, a tremendous gift, because you can create environments of control, perceived control. For example, if you give people a say in the decisions that affect them in the workplace, it gives people a tremendous degree of surety and removes a lot of stress. At the same time, if you limit micromanaging, if you give people ownership of the projects they're involved in, if you build trust, it creates almost a safe haven, a safe zone, where people feel that they've got some element of control back in their lives. But at the same time, there's this loneliness factor that exists in the world. As a leader, again, family, team, business, if you create an environment where there's shared interaction, where people learn together, they work on projects together, they check in on each other, you check in on them, and you create this environment where they believe in the vision, the morality of the company and the business, they believe that they stand, or they're working for an organization that stands for something, this loneliness, this feeling of isolation disappears. So although the times are difficult and the challenges are seemingly insurmountable, there are things that we can do in our microcosm that change lives. And the things that we really need to focus on is re-establish a sense of control within the people under our care or in our sphere of influence, and make them feel connected to each other and to us and to a bigger cause. The book essentially has 4 messages, 4 very strong messages. The first message is really how chronic stress affects us, all of us, on a biological and physiological level. Our digestive systems, our nervous system, our immune system all get compromised. And through this understanding, we can really relate to others, what they're going through. We can show more compassion, be more empathetic. The second part of the book, or the second real message, really talks to why. Why are we so stressed right now? Why is there so much uncertainty and so much fear? Because if we understand this landscape, we're more effective in being able to change it. The third message is that what are the consequences from a social economic perspective of inaction? If we understand how stress affects us, and we know what's causing us, what's going to be the outcome if we don't make the changes that we're looking for and that we need so desperately? The fourth message is probably the central theme of the book. And that talks to, yes, we understand the landscape. We understand the effects. We understand the consequence of inaction. But this part is about what do we do about it? How do we create change? How do we change and influence the lives of those who fall within our sphere of influence, that we're responsible, whose destiny is connected to our own? That's what that 4th chapter is about. So the message that I'd really like to impart to the reader is that we have the power to change lives. We have the influence. We have the ability to create the future that we're looking for. But it fundamentally starts with us. And it starts with a single step.